Hi everyone, my name is Jimmy. I'm an addict. The person you're about to hear is probably the greatest person I know. I married her almost 22 years ago. I met her at her first meeting. She wasn't a nice person, and she'll probably talk about that. And she told me not to talk a whole lot up here because I can talk forever. But she's good NA. She's really strong NA, and I love Ripley, and I love her, and I introduced Noreen.
Hi everybody, my name's Noreen and I'm an addict. And I live in Cincinnati and my home group is the Winners Group of Narcotics Anonymous. We meet on Friday nights at 8 o'clock. And you all are welcome if you're ever in Cincinnati during that time. I also want to let you know I've been clean since April 25th, 1980. Now, I say that I'm also a person that has been blessed with recovery since the very first day of my very first meeting. Okay? That is not everybody's story. That's not, that's the cool thing about Narcotics Anonymous. That's the cool thing about, we get what we need here, okay? And if something happens, we get to try again. It's in our steps, amends. So for me, amending things that I've made mistakes about in my life means I make an effort to do it differently, which means if you're having trouble staying clean, come back and hang with us again. Be here with us. Okay. So I want people to do that. And tonight, so I'm already weepy-eyed. I am. And I'm not a tremendous crier, I don't cry a lot, but I do, because it's a human thing to do. It has, and I want to tell you a little about me, okay, and my story. And what I have to offer you strictly today is my story. This is not about the way it should be or ought to be or any of that stuff. It's simply my story. Now, I gave you my clean date. My clean date is previous to Narcotics Anonymous being available to me in Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay. I did not start NA in Cincinnati, Ohio. I like to be clear about that because sometimes people misunderstand what that means. Okay? That doesn't mean that. I will tell you that I went to my very first meeting of Narcotics Anonymous in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the summer of 1980. This is the way it was back then. People were in a place that I was at, and I overheard them talking. Literally, I overheard them talking about doing this. And I knew where the place was because I went to a meeting in that place, so I thought, I think I'll show up. Because where I was, there were people there that told me I didn't belong. Now, equally, there were people there that accepted me. I want to be clear about that. However, as a new person, sometimes when you're told you don't belong, that's really the big thing that you hear. So I go to this NA meeting. There are 3 of us there. It's in the undercroft of this church, downtown Cincinnati, and there are 3 of us there. And see, I predate the book. All that stuff. There's no book. They had this little white book, and I came in. There were two guys and me, and the power of the message of Narcotics Anonymous is beyond using addicts, okay? So using addicts, the 2 other people that were there were still using. They wanted what NA had to offer. They had the desire. That's what we say? All you need is a desire. These guys had the desire. They didn't have the ability, They didn't. Okay, but they had the desire. Okay? And because of their desire, I did hear a message of Narcotics Anonymous because the little white book, the information that was there. Now, I will tell you, I did not stay hanging out with them. Okay? I want to be clear about that too. Okay? I did not. And I did not because my recovery came first to me. My life came first, and I had to do what I needed to do in order to be a recovering person. Okay? So I kept an eye on you all. That's what I did. It's like I kept an eye on what was going on and where I might, where I might fit in and come in. And I told you in the other fellowship there were people that didn't want me there. Well, I want you to know you all weren't necessarily the most welcoming either. Because I was other. Because people recognized me from other. And it wasn't my language or any of that, is they just and here's what I have discovered about that, okay? What has unfolded and been revealed to me about that is, you know how little kids have to develop? Well, organization and fellowships like Narcotics Anonymous have to develop too. And there's a lot of, I'm not you, I'm not them, I'm different, and so they push against something else. I happened to get caught in that, okay? And getting caught in that is very painful, but the organization is bigger than the one person. And I am persistent enough, you see I'm still here. Okay? I'm persistent enough that I go about getting what I need for my recovery. And what I need is you all. I needed a new way of life. I needed that. And it was a long time. And still today there are days and times that I'm told I'm not a right kind of enough member, and sometimes that's not very pretty. And I'm here. I have a message of recovery. I know what it's like to use and not to be able to stop. I know what it's like to want to be better and not be able to be better. I know what it's like to want to belong and not feel like you belong. And here's the deal. I also found out my feelings are not necessarily the facts of the matter. Okay? How I feel about things is not really always clearly reality. Okay? So my feelings and reality can be at odds with each other. So I wanted to tell you that part, okay, to kind of get that out of the way. And so I want to tell you a little bit about me. So I'm a Southie girl, and a Southie girl is, some of you all may have been gone to the movies and stuff like that. So all that whole stuff with Black Mass and Departed and all of that stuff, well, that was part of my life. I lived there. That's where I grew up, and my dad was one of the people that was involved in all of that stuff in various ways. And he was involved in politics and all that stuff. So that's how I grew up. So I grew up in Southie, and inside my household, things were not so wonderful. There was incest. There was addiction. There was problems with food. I told somebody the story the other day about my mom and cupcakes. Let me tell you this story. This will give you a little indication how weird things can get. So at least for me, it was pretty weird, So my dad buys cupcakes, and he brings them and he puts them in the pantry, and Sunday we're going to have cupcakes, right? So we're going to have cupcakes, and my mom brings the cupcakes out, and there's no icing on any of the cupcakes. My mom says, "Which one of you kids did this?" And there's 4 of us. So I'm the oldest, and she's asking, and we're all like, "I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it." Well, probably 50 years later, my mother's in the back seat of my car. You get where I'm going? My mother says, "I had the icing off the cupcakes. It was me." Oh my God. now when you're a kid, you go, I know I really didn't do it, and then you're looking around, of course you're blaming the other. It's like, must have been, you're trying to figure out which one. Oh. So my son was sitting next to me and said, Grandma, that's not nice at all. Yeah, Brendan, you're right. So it was kind of that kind of way, and when I shared that story with you, I'm sharing with how secretive and the word that you hear all the time is dysfunctional. We had a roof over our head. We had food to eat. I dressed nice. We had a car. We were the first ones in the neighborhood to have a car. We had a color TV. We had all that. I had all that stuff. I went to private Catholic school. I went to an all-girls Catholic. Oh, yeah, that was lovely. So, yeah, Mount St. Joseph Academy for Young Catholic Women. In the 60s, late 60s. And the uniform I wore was the nun's uniform. That was the uniform for the girls in the school. It was the postulant's uniform. But the ones that the nuns were going to become nuns, that's what we wore as our school. Not the Catholic school plaid skirt. No. I had to get a collar and pin it on, starch it, and a handkerchief with the school. Oh, good. And I'm still not a domestic goddess. I don't like girly things in general. I'm not frou-frou. I like to, I'm dressed, kind of, you know what I mean? I like that. I put the kind of things, but I'm not the makeup girl. I'm not the hairdo girl, which, by the way, many of you have noticed I lack the long silver hair I once had. So I'll get back to that. Thank you. You too. But thank you. But no, you too, because it's still, but I don't have it. And I loved my hair. I loved it. And life happens, and so I don't have it right now. And I'll tell you a little bit about that probably in a little bit. But so this is the family I was raised in, kind of. My dad was off running, and so my dad was big cigars and motor cars guy. Out and about and in those backroom meetings, kind of stuff. I mean, that's what. And because my mom, because of the dysfunction in the family and stuff, I would get dressed up. My mom would be mad at my dad, and she'd dress me up, and I'd go out with him. So I was his date a lot. I accompanied my father to a lot of different places. So I learned to have discussions with older people, and I knew how to do that. And I could talk, and I felt my opinion, my views were valued, and but not. And at home, my dad ended up we were best buddies and worst enemies. I was the only one in the home that ever told him that he was doing something wrong. Of course, that was my role, right? That's my job as the kid to tell my dad, yeah. I absolutely disrespected my mother. Absolutely. Did not want what she had at all. Did not want it. You know what she did? She took care of us. She fed us. She cleaned the house so we had a decent house cleaned to live in. She did those things, and I hated her for it. It's like, ugh. I also grew up in a time when there was much more distinction between what a boy does and what a girl does. And I grew up immediately not understanding that. Not understanding why that was true and fighting against it. So I grew up, pushing against whatever was there already. This is before I used. I also had a tendency to be fat. That was unacceptable in my family because image was important. So they took me to the fat doctor. I got a shot. Liked it. I did. I liked it. Because I liked it. And they also gave me these little black pills, and that's what they did. So I'm in single digits. and that's going on. And then I had allergies, and I just some things happened in my life health-wise. I had a thing called viral encephalitis. Now that's a virus in your brain. So I was in a coma, things like that, and I had to relearn a lot of things. So it's like waking up. For me, it was like waking up one day, and here's what I knew. I knew I had read that book, but I had no idea what was between the covers at all. I didn't have to relearn to walk and things like that. At least it didn't feel like it. I didn't have to do that. But I did have to, I had to get back into life with great blank spots. Huge blank spots. And so it was my sister and I still do not have a relationship despite my efforts to make amends. My brothers and I are so-so. So you hear things about people's families getting back together and things like that. And it does happen, and things can improve, but they don't always get the way you would like them to get, at least the way I would like them to be. So I haven't gotten that yet. And I say yet because I really believe there's always room. As long as I'm here, there's always room for hope, in a relationship, in me, and whatever comes. At that time also, my grandfather was, he was the perpetrator of incest in our family, and we lived in the home. I grew up in a neighborhood where grandparents and uncles could live in the same household as the rest of the family. They would be upstairs and we were downstairs. It varied from household to household, but our whole block was like that. And when if you did something wrong, your mom, the neighbors took care of it, and then you went home and it got taken care of again. It's like always double trouble. I'm wore out. So just so you know, so I'm slow today. I don't feel as peppy as I used to. But I wanted you to have some kind of understanding of what my childhood was like. I grew up in Southie, and I was also at the age of 12 sexually assaulted by a gang of guys. They dragged me into the park, and they wanted to know what a girl looked like. Let's say that. And I call it was a group hormone attack. Adolescent boys. That's I was, and one of them was my first cousin. So, that was just so weird for me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know. I was the oldest. I had always kind of got the sense that I was supposed to know how to handle everything on my own. And so I just proceeded to not tell anyone. I didn't trust anybody in the church. I didn't have anybody that, and I didn't have any. I was one of those people that I could not form and develop relationships with other human beings. I didn't know how to do it. Let me tell you, that still can be a problem for me today. It is something that is consistently an issue for me. Now, other people from the outside may not view that of me, but it is difficult for me, and it's not an easy task to maintain them. I can initiate them. You know what I mean? I can start them, but my follow-through on that is really difficult for me. And yet, I want it so bad. I had this image of me as a kid with my face pressed up against the glass, and everybody out is out playing and having fun. And I'm inside, and I just don't know how to get out. I'm locked in, and I want to be out with everybody, but I don't know how to do it. And that's a consistent image that's been there for me. Even in dreams, it's like, shh, there it is. Away from, separate from, not like, can't fit in. All of those themes, we hear it here over and over. That's not unique to me. You hear it over and over again in these rooms. So people felt, that's again where I keep finding out that my feelings are not necessarily the facts of the matter, and that I can keep showing up and keep making the effort. That's what I have learned. I have learned to, no matter what, keep making the effort. I don't care if I'm hurt or I'm angry or any of those things. I keep showing up, and that has worked for me. That has worked for me. That has been such a blessing to me. It's like having a gift, because I watch people struggle with being able to show up. Struggle. Now, I'm not saying I don't have a struggle on the way there, my head's talking to me, all that stuff, but I keep showing up and I put myself down in a chair. So that's kind of what it was like for me as a kid. Those kind of things. And it was started to be the late 60s, and things got more and more interesting. And so I had a fight with my father, and I left home. It was that simple. I met some people and went in town Boston Commons and hooked up with folks, and off I went. The clothes I had on, a purse, and I had gone to the bank and gotten all of the $45 I had in there. That was it. That's what I had, and that is how I left home. And I put my thumb out and wandered all around New England and New York and all around, and people back then took us in and fed us, and it was playtime. It was fun. I did all kinds of different substances that were around and available during the time, and that was part of my experience, and I loved it. To me, I felt free for the first time, because there were a lot of restraints on me. But see, I also am a person who needs some restraint. Thank goodness for the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. They're the restraints on me today. Okay, they are. And I'm glad for that. I went from feeling really restrained to, whoo-hoo-hoo, yeah. All right, ready. And so my life became a lot of drugs and sex and, with whoever I wanted to, whenever I wanted to. So when I had an inventory to do, so every time I hear that word virgin, I just shake my head. Because that was part of, for me, what I wanted. I was a girl who wanted to have fun, just like that damn song. But I did, because I felt so restrained and hurt and, regimented and all of those things. And it's like, yes! And I also, because I was raised in a political family, it was very easy for me to also get get political. So by the time I ended, and I did end up in Cincinnati, Ohio, I didn't even know it existed. I kind of knew the United States, although I had learned it in grade school, I knew the parts by the large, significant bodies of salt water, and the ones up north with the fresh water, but they weren't as important to me. It's the salt water, right? So that's like, I know these. That's where I want to be. Not my life. I've been in Cincinnati a long time. I've left, but I came back. It's where I'm supposed to be. It just is. So I get to Cincinnati, and I walk up this long street, big hill, when I finally get there. It's Vine Street. And I sat my butt down in a place called the Cincinnati Free Clinic. And, folks like us can be kind of interesting. And I was running the place in 6 months. Truth. I sat down there, I was on the street, I did all the kinds of things that were there. I put all kinds of substances in my body in all different kinds of ways. And these folks there said, look, we'll help you. Now, I want you to know that nobody suggested that I go to a 12-step program. This is in the, 1970 by this time. So they said, we'll help you. And they did. They helped me to stop. And, I got something there that made sense. And what made sense was replacement. And replacement wasn't a replacement of a substance. There's many different kinds of replacement. My replacement was service and work. Okay, because I felt I was being of service to this hippie community, okay, and to the revolutionary community. I felt I was being of service because I was doing medical care, because back then, they didn't have places for people to go that had no money. There was no place to go if you were a kid on the street and you were hurt. Maybe the ER. So we had a volunteer clinic, where the doctors and the nurses and the pharmacists, I had a key to the pharmacy. How does that happen? You know what it's like? But this is going to sound, things come to mind sometimes when you're up in places like this. So young boys used to come in. I was young too. I was only like 19. But these kids would come in, and the boys would want rubbers. And I'd have to go get them for them. It was hysterical. And I'd open up the pharmacy, and I'd get them out, and I'd show them the variety, right? And I'd just talk all about them, whatever. These guys were like, they just grab them and go, because we give it away for nothing. But it was funny. I remember that. So poor guys. Oh, that was hard. But I was very involved politically at the time in the stuff that went on. And as a matter of fact, so involved, I worked on the Independent Eye, which was an underground newspaper at the time, and that my household, along with the Black Panther household, were wiretapped by the city of Cincinnati. And years later, and actually one of the buildings I lived in was burnt down by the authorities. Unknown arson. And they actually gave me money later on in year, and I was clean. The city actually gave me some money for my clothes that they burned up. It was weird. But I was, that's, when you go from one restriction to all of this stuff, and I want you to know, it was exciting. It was new. It was energizing. I was doing good work at the clinic, and it felt right, and I knew my life was going in a good order, and I wasn't using. And somebody said to me, "Hey, Noreen, you want to go get a drink after work?" Because I didn't drink much. So here's what happened. I go and have a drink with them. What do I know? It's just okay. It was social, that kind of stuff. And then the next week they said, "Do you want to go?" And I have to tell you, within an extremely short time, because I had stopped using a lot of all those other substances, right? And I really wasn't using them. And I was doing these other things, and I was involved in life and involved in what I felt were positive things, and trying to be helpful, be of service. We talk about that here. So I got some, I was making an effort in my own maybe twisted way, okay? But I was making an effort to be of service to people. And very soon after that, I no longer cared if I was of service. I went to work. It was a job. It had become a job. And it was only so that I could have the money so I could go out, so I could get high. Happened to be liquid form most of the time then, That's what I did. And it took over my life again. I had no solution. What I'm sharing with you is I was able to clean up. There were some parts of what this program offered you that they were kind of in there, but the whole deal wasn't there, and nobody had that to share with me at that time, or at least nobody put me in that direction. They didn't make an effort to send me anywhere else, you know? Thought it was a matter of willpower and change what you're doing. And so I had a lot of time that I forgot, that I don't remember. Did you think it's interesting? I think it's interesting when we talk about our blackouts. Now, how is that possible? I think of that sometimes. I think, wait a minute, it was a blackout. How do I know? I get a sense of things, you know, and for me, I have a lot of mental blank spots. Okay, I have a lot of them, before and after. It can be really hard for me to remember things. So I did all kinds of things. Now I also, remember I told you, you know, I raised in the, born in the 50s, raised in the 60s, and, didn't understand the boy-girl thing and how come that was the way it was. Well, along comes an opportunity, because I was the one in the family that always put everything together. My dad's motto was, I'm clerical, not physical, but I get the job done, which means either I did it or he paid somebody. Okay, so I was very inclined that way. And they wouldn't let me in the schools back then because I was a girl. So you're hearing a resentment? I had a resentment royal. It became women's liberation, and it became very important to me. Okay? And so I had an opportunity after, I did a lot of stuff during the next 19 till I was 28 years old, which is when I was 28 when I stopped using. So it was a long time that I was looking for something. I wanted to feel good. I wanted to do something. I wanted to prove I had something to prove. Okay. So an opportunity came up where I became the first woman in the electrical department at the University of Cincinnati General Hospital. And I was still using, though. By that time, I had started the drinking and all of that, and then gradually towards the end of that, I was doing all kinds of things again. So it was all in there. But I got the job. I've never understood how I got the job. I'm very serious when I say that. What in the world were they thinking? Because I want to describe what it was, what I had on the dress, and I wore a dress in this big antique mouton lamb coat. And that's when I went into my job interview dressed in. That was from the night before. I hadn't gone home and changed. And they hired me. So I don't know. So I got to do this electrical work for a little while. The disease took that away from me. And I had fun with the guys. I mean, we would go out at night and that's a time in my life where I was crawling in windows. I hear people talking about that. I said, oh, yeah, I remember that. Now, I have to say, I wasn't crawling in strangers' windows, only people I knew. And I really, to my knowledge, wasn't taking things for them. I just simply couldn't get home and thought, that's a good idea. They would just find me there. I was like, oh, hi. Good to see you, Noreen. Here's a cup of coffee. Part of this is to remember, the times, and there was a lot. It was people's homes were a lot freer and open then. They just were, and when you had that group of friends, that could happen. But there were no cell phones, so I couldn't warn them ahead of time. So So I'm kind of talking about the things that I did and the way it was and what was happening inside, though, was more the issue. What was happening inside for me was this. No matter what I was doing, the level of fear that I had could not be kept down. No matter what I was doing. And I am not standing up here today telling you I was consciously thinking, putting the fear, I wasn't conscious of anything. I am still, in a lot of ways, one of those, we roll into, I'm glad. I have to tell you, I'm rather glad about that. I'm not the greatest planner in the world. But it is an advantage in a living just for today to have. That, to me, is an advantage to this 12-step way of life. Now, we plan plans, but not results. But, usually if we come in and we're planners, that means that result will be that. And I watch people struggle with that, and I'm kind of like, okay, on to something new and different, I'll make an adjustment. That doesn't mean I'm always happy with it, or that I do it smiling. So I got those jobs, and I started having jobs that were non-traditional jobs for women. And so if you can imagine, here, I know you're looking at me today, 64 and all this. So this is a woman who stands before you, who has been an electrician, who has been an elevator constructor, who has walked on open steel, who has climbed poles, because I installed for Warner Cable. I was the first woman online for Warner Cable in Cincinnati. I did those kind of things, and I was the first one in. Being the first one in is no fun. They were mean, really mean. And of course, my husband described to you a little bit about what I was like when he met me. So the level of fear in my life got so bad, I knew I had to do something about it. Now, I had lived other places. I told you than Cincinnati. I lived out west in California. I lived in Laramie, Wyoming. I lived in Moorhead, Kentucky. I've lived all these little places. And I kept coming back to Cincinnati. And so I'm in. The level of fear got so bad, I couldn't answer a door. I could not answer my phone. I could not go to work. That job and that thing that I had been after all my life, so I was so pissed off at all those guys, I could not get myself to go to work. I had been out all night the night before, and I just couldn't do it. The level of fear inside me was unbearable. I didn't know what to do. I knew I needed help. I knew it was crazy to not be able to open your mail. That's really what tripped it. I couldn't open my mail. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified to open a piece of mail. And I knew, there was that moment that I knew how crazy that was. And because I had that moment, I sought help. Now, I didn't come to a 12-step program. I didn't recognize at that time that I had the disease of addiction. I didn't recognize that. I knew what I knew was I was crazy. My behavior was crazy. That thinking that I had, the intensity of that was crazy. So I did what you do. I go to the doctor and I go to the psychiatrist. In 1980, there weren't a lot of those places that we hear so many people, those treatment centers that we talk about, sometimes not so nicely. So I went to the psychiatrist. Psychiatrist says to me, Noreen, I'm going to put you, if you can't go to work tomorrow, I'm going to put you in the hospital. Okay, I didn't want to go to the hospital, but I want you to know, this is where I learned the lesson. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Nothing had changed. I had simply gone to the doctor and told him. And he said, go to work. And I couldn't go day. So I called him and I said, I can't go. And he said, well, come here. And I did. And I want you to know, they put me in the locked psych ward. Jail's institution here, okay? So I get locked behind the psych ward doors. Now, I was so insulted because there was an open ward, too. But that's not where he put me. I loved the psych ward. I loved it. I really did. I had 3 meals a day. People, I even got to play with crafts, I mean, it was just like, I didn't have to answer the phone, and when my mother called, somebody else took the call. I don't know about you, but that was a pretty good deal for me. I was like, yeah, relief, somebody else is being responsible, and I don't have to be, but it's being taken care of. I understand why people would want to go to the psych ward to get relief. Sometimes, they used to use very different medications back then, too. So they gave me some of that medication. And I'm the person that I am, and we all deal with those chemicals differently. So they gave me the medicine. And I have to describe, I had this really, really red velvet robe. That's what I had when I was in the psych ward. So what happened is they would give me the medication. I'm in bed was in bed when they gave me the medication. They give me the medication, and I get a little while later. I get up to go out of bed, and I'm like, like the Wicked Witch when she melted, like a pool of blood in this, in this red velvet. Yeah. So they kept trying different things, because that's what they do. That's their arsenal. Okay, those are the tools that they had to deal with somebody like me. I try, and this doctor would try and talk to me about what the problems are. What are your problems? And I talk about the problems. And I couldn't. So finally, he said, he tried everything. He thought of everything he could think of. And I just, I was not responding. And so this doctor saved my life. A psychiatrist with all of his education, what he did was he looked at me and he said, oh, I had written this list because I was afraid he was going to kick me out. I liked my happy home in the psych ward, and he made me, is how I viewed it. He made me write a list, because I was afraid. Fear can be a motivator. So when we talk about fear, at least for me, when we talk about fear, and I'm afraid, it doesn't have to be something that makes life impossible. It be the energy that you need if you turn it just the slightest bit to take action. That fear can help you take action versus stop you from taking action. Same thing going on. Just a little adjustment, and you can take it in a whole other direction. And so then writes the list, and he saved my life because what he did is he looked at me and he said, "Oh, you have a problem with these substances. I'm going to give you a pass." And he gave me a pass to a 12-step group fellowship. He gave me the phone number. I called. They hung up on me. I had to call again. So perseverance and doing it again, despite what happens, is something that I learned very early on, And I also learned that everybody doesn't have to like me. No, I want each and every one of you in here to really like me. I really do. I do. But if you don't, that's going to be okay. I will survive. I will live. I will go on. And most of the time, I won't even know that you don't like me, except there'll be this couple of few that come up and say, I really don't like you. It's like, oh, good. Let's talk about that. I don't know. It's like, that could be interesting. That could be interesting. Yeah, why not? So how come? Because here's something else. As somebody who has some time, we are each other's eyes and ears, and I want to say this, and I say it here, okay? I say it with all of you. We are each other's eyes and ears. And I am not above needing you to point things out to me that I may be doing that I'm off track. I am not above that. And sometimes I think people are too afraid to say that. Oh my God. Not because of necessarily my personality or anything just because, oh my God, the time. No, save my life, damn it. Please. Okay? I want to be clear on that. Save my life. We are here for each other. That's important to me. So now I get to come to, to recovery. So I get to recovery. No NA, go to the meeting, can't go, regular time. This 36 years, I was 28 when I got to recovery, and I'm 64 now. 36 years, And so I've been in recovery and utilizing the 12 steps and the 12 traditions and the 12 concepts in one way or another in my life the whole time. And I'm not well. I am not well. I am better. Most days I'm really pretty damn good. Okay? But I'm not well. And I need you all. I need you all. I need what you have to offer me. I need the connection that I get to have, with other human beings here. I need that. And I've also discovered, you discover things about yourself. I discovered that I'm an extrovert and an introvert. That I need both. That I really need that time. What's really, for me, that's kind of balanced, isn't it? That I need time away and time with. That's pretty cool, actually. And that in the 12 steps, it gives me that, because it tells me I need meditation. And meditation can come in many forms. Just being quiet, doing certain forms. That's what's cool about the whole 12-step experience for me, okay, is that I get to experiment. I get to try on different things and different ways of doing things. And some of them work for me, and some of them don't. The ones that don't, I leave to the side. But I also have that experience to offer somebody else. Say, hey, you might try. That's cool. What I have done and experienced and what has worked for me and what has not worked for me can still be something of value that I get to give to somebody else. The thing that I love to do in narcotics, I love sponsoring women. I love it. I absolutely love it. Because that for me is where, I get to form and develop very intimate relationships with other human beings that I otherwise probably would not if I did not have that form. Seriously. Probably would not happen. Because I would not have the ability to have the continuity to do that. Even now. Just, So I get to do that. There are some amazing women in recovery. Just amazing. I get to be the eyes and ears as a grant sponsor for people who have out-of-town sponsors. I get to be the eyes and ears of the people in my home group when they come into the meeting, because I get to know you and I get to know your faces, and I look around and I can, because we are who we are, we can start to see who's in pain. And we can look and say, and make sure I go up and say something to them, even if it's just the smallest thing. Just a hello, how are you tonight? Just the smallest thing. That's my job. Home group, so important. Doing what I need to do there. The boring stuff. I have a member of my home group that, I wish I could aspire to be. He is there on Friday nights, and he sets that place up and has been doing it for 30 plus years, really, essentially. There, regular, teaching his guys to do the same thing, It's really cool. It is just so cool to watch. I love that stuff. I love watching it. It excites me. Weird things excite me, I guess. It's like, oh, that's really cool. I love the fact that we have the 12 steps to help us. To be honest with you, I am far more impressed with the 12 traditions that allow us to be together. Okay, I really am. Because I assure you that I would not be married to the man I am married to today were it not for the 12 traditions and the principles that are in there. Because I am not someone who wants to think about the unity of the marriage over what I want to do. Innately, I am not. Okay? That's just one example. But it's the principles involved in that not only allow me to stay in a marriage, but allow home groups to be together, to share differences of opinion, to figure out what we need to do to stay together so that we can help the addict who still suffers. And I do have opinions, I do. So here's one of them. I don't always believe that the newcomer is the most important person in the room. Here's what I believe. I believe the person that is hurting, okay, the person that needs our way of life, that needs our love and compassion, is the person who is the most important. And that could be anybody. Now, I do not take away from the fact that newcomers absolutely need us. I'm not saying that at all. I'm really not. But it's like, I would word that differently. I would. It's like, don't forget. Yeah. Anyway, just kind of things like that. I do that in my own head. And I share that with others, and they can do that in their own head. I don't have to change everything. You don't have to rewrite a book for me. You just don't. I'll figure a way through it. I've gotten pretty good at that. I've gotten pretty good at that. When I first came into recovery, all those he's and were she's, and I read it that way too. I did change it. And every place that said God, I said goddess. $1980, they loved me. What do we do with her? But here's the bottom line. Whether they knew what to do with me or not, they gave me a life-giving program. Okay, they showed me the 12 steps. That's what I'm trying to say. It's okay. We can make mistakes. We can do all kinds of things, and there's room here for those mistakes. And because of those 12 traditions, I believe there's enough here that we can stay together and we can move forward. So my husband did mention that I met him. I met him my very first meeting. And he introduced himself. And I said something like, I don't like you. I don't like men. You got nothing I want or like. Stay the hell away from me. But I went on, I won't do it from here, but I did describe pieces of his anatomy I didn't really know about till later. Yeah. Because see, you never know what's going to happen. I was dating women. Okay? So I was dating women. That was what and so, but here's the thing. What I discovered of myself through the 12 steps and all that stuff is like, I can be who I am. I'm going to love who I love. And that for me, this person here, okay, that may not be for everyone else, but this person here, I fall in love with a person. I don't fall in love with the gender of that person. It's just the way it is. And I just knocked the mics all over the place. Sorry. So yeah. So I dated women, and I had these relationships, and the first one, I didn't tell you, They gave me a nickname. I will tell you, they gave me a nickname. So, sometimes they give people nicknames. They gave me one. They called me Fuck You, Noreen. Yeah. And the reason for that is women's lib and all that stuff, and angry coming in from the streets and the psych ward and all that stuff, fear and all that stuff. They would say, "You want a cup of coffee? Fuck you." I mean, just like, "Hey, Noreen, you want to do this? Fuck you." I mean, it was just, that's all I knew. I mean, it was like, oh, that was my automatic. I mean, do not even try. Now you may, but don't open the damn door for me. You couldn't be nice I was just, you know what I mean? You just couldn't be nice. It was, it didn't matter if it was a man or a woman opened the door, really, in the long run. It's like, I could do it myself. I could do it myself was my, yeah, okay. So, and I want you to know that they didn't tell me they called me that for a while. Yeah. So what I got a sponsor, I got a home group, I got those things that we need in order to live, in order to learn and live a new way of life that we have here, I showed up, I suited up, I did the things that were there before me to do. I got, oh yeah, do you know, I was one of those unemployable. It took me 3 years to get a real job. 3 years. Nobody would hire me. Nobody would. So people in the program would give me things to do. So I did maintenance for somebody. I did clerical work for somebody else, but they weren't real jobs. Like you went and you got hired, and I had these little things, so they only lasted a certain period of time. That was what happened for me, and yeah, it was wild. And I had fun. I probably had the first real fun in my life. The first real fun. Where I really felt like the first really true laughter. Where it comes up and it bubbles from down inside you and comes all the way up. And it shocks you. It feels so joyous. It's like, what was that? Wow. You all gave me that. Something I really, you didn't give me back, I don't think. I don't think I had ever experienced it. You gave me that. You gave me a place to run to. Because I don't know about you all, but there were plenty that went on in my life when I was new, and even today, that I felt the need to run. So instead of running away, which is what I used to do, which is the thumb and going and living in different places. As a matter of fact, I used to describe my friendships and things like that, like the Olympic circles. See the Olympic circles? Those. So you're doing this, you do something screwed up, and there's one person from that circle that's up there. And you get to go in that circle. And then you do something, you screw up, you're on to the other circle. That was the way my life was, because I was always moving away from, because I was afraid and I was ashamed and I carried all that stuff. You all gave me a solution for that. So that even when I was feeling uncomfortable, by the way, there's another thing. I really don't care if you feel uncomfortable. Good. I'm glad you feel uncomfortable. That's a good thing. That means you're thinking about things, you're feeling about things, you're experiencing things. And you can come sit in a meeting uncomfortable. You don't have to, when we tell people to, this is, again, my view, but it's my experience also, that when I'm new at something, I'm never going to be comfortable where I am. I haven't done the 12 steps. I haven't done that. I'm not going to be comfortable in my own skin. I'm not necessarily going to find the perfect place. Just go and sit. Just go and sit. Go a few times. Just don't go the once. And if after a few times it's still, go somewhere else. That's cool, but, go to another meeting. And they saved my life by telling me to keep going to meetings. They saved my life. 90 and 90. Absolutely. And you are listening to a person who probably went to a meeting, at least one, often two, sometimes 3 and 4, for the first 5 years of her recovery. Seriously. I was too afraid not to. I was afraid what would happen if I didn't go. And I also think when I look back on it, I think I was afraid that the connection would break if I didn't keep going. I think I was afraid that the connection would break if I didn't keep going. And I didn't want that because you all had done something for me that I could not do for myself. You had given me a way of living which really ultimately made sense to me, which I could see the value in, that I could see if I didn't see it in me, and I often did not see it in me, but when working with others, I would see it and go, that's it, oh, and now I remember, and that makes the connection back there. So it wasn't always I had this great revelation while I was doing my step work. Often I would have this thought come upon me, this feeling come when I was working with somebody else. And as a matter of fact, the only times that I think in my recovery, and there have been few, not every time, but that few amazing glimpses of being a person in recovery and not thinking about myself. And that was when I was working with another addict. The only time. Not always, but the only time. What do I have? This morning's meditation was about spiritual awakening and placing yourself around those that have the joy or the laughter, or that you can see that spark in them. And that's what I got to do with you all. I got to place myself around you all so that I didn't get it by osmosis, but that was part of it. We talked about that earlier. I didn't get it by osmosis, but that was part of it. I was at least in a position, in a place where other people were doing that. And then, one of my faults might be, people pleasing. We could have that a little bit. Probably not as major as some of the other ones in my life. But but I wanted to be a part of, right, that piece? And because I wanted to be part of, I would start doing the things they did. And I would get the benefits of doing that. Whether I wanted to or not, it just kind of would happen because I was taking action. Action over talk any day. Action over talk any day. And that's not to say it has been amazing for me when I have had. We can disagree without being disagreeable. Not at first. No way. You definitely were going to hear from me and everything that I had to say and every word of it. And that's changed over time. In my time in recovery, I was married before, and before Jimmy. And that marriage ended. It was disastrous. I did the things we're supposed to do here. I show up, I go to the meetings, I do that, and I tried to take care of my life by having a job, things like that. Did those kind of things. That's what you all taught me that I'm supposed to do, self-supporting. So I get married, and I had hurt my back on the job, and I was on workers' compensation, and I got pregnant and had my son Brendan. He was just 30, May 3rd. And so I was in my 30s before I had him, so I was an old mother. And I had silver hair even then. I've had silver streaks in my hair since I was a teenager. So, I had this long gray hair, and I was going to school. I was going to NKU, and I would take my son there, and the kids in the art school, because I was going to art school at the time, I was taking photography, going to the art school, would babysit him while I went in the dark room. The kids in drama would do clown things for him. It was the greatest daycare, So they were fabulous. And so, I had this marriage, and the marriage fell apart. He decided to do things differently than I was doing things. He decided to be secretive. He decided to be dishonest. These things that we talk about here. So I cannot, one person, maintain a relationship with somebody who's doing something so opposite of what I'm doing. Can't do it. That marriage ended. I didn't want to come to you and tell you I had failed in that marriage because I had waited, and oh, that was funny. I did tell you I married a man, right? That was an interesting thing. People went, what? More is revealed. I actually did something that I don't know that anybody else has. There might be somebody out there that has done this. So, we go out, you hear people say, I'll go out of town and use and nobody'll know. I went out of town and had sex with a guy so I could make sure that that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want anyone to know. I did not want anyone. It's like, just in case that really isn't the whole story. And I was really afraid that people because they knew me, right? I mean, think about that. You come in, you're who you are, you grow and develop, and you're this and you're that and the other thing. And you kind of get a persona. Not that you're trying to be, fit into a box necessarily, but boy, I found out I can't fit in one. No sooner as I kind of think things are done, and I'm kind of like, yeah, this is good, and I know the borders, whatever they are in me, whatever shape that takes, I know if something changes, it's like, oh, something new I have to explore, and I don't know, but I do things in a public way. That's basically what it is. When I make changes, they're public changes. It's like, okay, here you are. I am now dating men. Really? And I have to explain that long before all of this, all of the talk. Again, perhaps before my time, before there was a lot of talk about, as we have in the news and all of that stuff about different people's sexual identity and all of that. It's like, this is who I am. And thank goodness for the 12-step programs of recovery because they allowed me to be who I was. Not everybody agreed with me, but here's what I believe, and it is my firm belief, that if I wanted to use anyone that I called that was a member, whether they liked me or understood or they, approved of the changes in me or whatever, if I was going to use and I called one of you all and you were that person, you would still help me stay clean. That's what this place does, okay? It gives me that. It gives me that faith that I can call you and you will help me stay clean, no matter if you like me or not. That's important to me. And that's been my experience, that I've been able to call people who I knew on any given day were not approving of my behavior or what I was doing, and they would help me. So, recovery. It's a lot of years, it's a lot of years. And life just kind of plods on year after year, and you do the next things and all of that. And I did, that marriage ended, the one I was talking to you about. It ended with a knife to my throat. He pulled the window out of the car and held my son, who was 3 years old at the time, hostage. Not pretty. Clean. This is happening to me. I didn't want to tell you all, but I came to you all and told you. I showed up, and you all helped. And somebody I knew, when I was going to a homeless shelter at 10 years clean with my son. I had a room, and somebody called me, and we talked, and they found me a place with another person, so I went there. And then I started my life over again, because here's what I learned. You all help me start whenever I need to start. Whenever I need to restart, you all have been there to help me do that. That doesn't mean you give me money or give me this or that. You just do. You support me in ways that are unbelievable. And that kind of shocking sometimes. It's like, whoa, I didn't expect that. So I restarted my life, and that's when Jimmy and I hooked up again. And so here's the story with Jimmy and I. Jimmy and I had known from my first meeting, and we did H and I worked together, and we got to be friends. And I got to tell you, I told him things, and he told me things, because I never thought I would ever be married to him or date him or anything. Yeah. So, when I was no longer with my husband and I was in the middle of divorce and all of that stuff, he says, "You want to go on a date?" A date? Yeah, okay, we can go on a date, but I have some rules. Rules? Rules for a date? What's this? I said, well, my rules were this. They're not rules, but they were requests on my part. I had to let him know, that here I am, I'm at this point in life, things are going on, and I am not ready to have a sexual relationship with you. I'm not ready to do that with anyone right now. How cool is that to know that about yourself? And to be able to say that to someone and think, well, if they go away because of that, no, so be it, But he didn't, and he kept showing up, and he kept taking me to dinner, and that's why I said, if you want to go to a dinner or a movie and be friends and do that stuff, that's great. So as Jimmy puts it, 6 months later, he won. Yeah. And we proceeded to have a relationship and then move in together and then get married. And in August, so we're married 22 years. In August, it'll be 23. And yeah. Okay. And yes, applaud that. But also know it's a lie when you hear people say that you can't be in recovery and have long-term relationships and marriages and whatever it is, the form that's for you. It's a lie. It can happen. It can happen. So what do I want to tell you to kind of end this with? My last year. So I got diagnosed with breast cancer in August last year. I had surgery in September, and I had chemo from October until April. And just Tuesday, I ended 6 weeks of radiation. They called and asked me to do this when I was really feeling bad from chemo. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't know that I can do that. But when I was taught, I say yes. I don't think about it. And then of all things, my grand sponsee and I were supposed to both be Saturday night speakers. And I'm thinking, that's not going to work. I want to hear her. And then they called again and said, hey, would you do Sunday morning? Okay, I'll go where you want me to go. That's what I was taught. So I'm here, Sunday morning. And all of these things to say to you that I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be able to speak in front of a group, and I wouldn't be able to do the things I did, which was also finally go to school and finish up. So in my 50s, in school with all of my son's classmates, kids that I had been the mother helper in the room, I was in college classes with, they actually elected me student senator. It was hysterical. And I got to do things that I never dreamed that were possible. And I got to do something and finish it. And today I have a master's degree in social work. I'm a licensed independent social worker. I work with our kids. And for some of our stories, our kids, for those of us that don't get recovery, it's sad and also wonderful. Because I have been able to be participant with them getting adopted and getting adopted into loving homes. I'm the therapist. I'm the one that I get to play with kids. I do fun stuff. I like draw and play with fuzzy things and do all this kind of stuff. And, and it's great. It's great fun. And I work with these kids, and it's a joy for me. So, and then I work with us who get in recovery too. Work with those families, and they get the kids back, and I get to be a part of that too. It's just that's amazing to me. Amazing to me. I didn't think I first of all never thought I'd work with kids. I thought I'd work with adults. What do I know? Again, unbeknownst to me. This cancer thing has been interesting to me because you gave me a way of life that allows me to live each day, and that's how I've proceeded through this. What do I need to do today? What do I need to do today? That's been it. What do I need to do today? I don't know how else to do things anymore, and how cool is that? What is on my plate today? What am I doing for my recovery today? My recovery can include physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What do I need to do in those areas? It's kind of a simple program for me. It's not this long, drawn out. I read the literature. I talk to others. I do all those things we do. I have a home group. I'm active. All of that stuff. And ultimately, I have had a spiritual awakening. And ultimately, I have a conscious contact with the higher power that helps me under all conditions. The biggest example of that was when I had that knife to my throat, and I was able to look in the eyes of my then husband and know him to be a terrorized human being. I knew him to be terrified, just terrified. I didn't have to hate him. I didn't have to take resentment. I didn't have to do any of those things. I could just see that he was terrified. And I also knew at the same time, how weird is this? But these are the things that I experienced, is that I knew I was okay. That I was okay no matter what. That I was okay. And I was able to proceed with the next things I needed to do in life. But I knew at that moment, because I could breathe in a higher power and breathe out my fear. That's what you taught me to do. Because, see, if I do that, I have that conscious contact, because you're not always there with me. So I need something other than just you. And I love you all, and I like being with you all. But during this time with chemo, I have had days and weeks in which I could not be with you. And I needed to have something that carried me through that other than you. And you gave me that. You gave me a higher power that I can talk to, that I can yell at, that I can cry to, all of that. You gave me that. You gave me a way of living that works under all conditions. And really, I thank you for that. I hope what I've shared today has been helpful to someone here. It's helped me get over a fear. I was afraid, this is the insanity. I was still afraid that you all were going to reject me, that I wasn't going to be the right kind. And I'm glad you allowed me to be the right kind. Thank you.